Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. The progress that I have made in the last 11 months has been extraordinary. Growing up, I had some symptoms that seemed like they may have been from chronic inflammation, stomach aches, swollen glands a lot. In college, I got mono, and I was told I would have chronic fatigue the rest of my life. In my 20s, I removed dairy and ate raw vegan, both of which helped a lot, and I felt pretty good for a couple of years. But then I went back to a more normal diet and I would push through tiredness. Sometimes I would work 12-hour intense days. In my late 20s, I was hospitalized with a systemic allergic reaction that did not stop for days. I was the one who figured out months later that it was most likely from an over-the-counter pain reliever that I had taken for many years until one day I reacted to it. I had a lot of issues with my neck. I got vertigo for 3.5 months at one point, which I believed was a reaction to a supplement. I had also taken many supplements prior to this time. So I thought it was this specific supplement, and I developed a real fear of it. I had a lot of fatigue. It was hard to make it through the work week. Around the time I had the perfect storm of emotional traumas and other life changes, I also got married, had two babies. We bought a sick house when my daughter was an infant, and we found out later the house had flooded and the sellers had lied about it. So there was all kinds of hidden old water damage. And during this time, I pretty much lost the ability to function normally. Exercise, definitely not socialize or anything. I was in survival mode. We were diagnosed with CIRS, and the detox medicine definitely alleviated some of my symptoms from severe to moderate or moderate to mild in some cases. But I ultimately could not live in our home. I became sensitive to every new or old environment I was previously in, even though I lived in it previously. I had a sixth sense for mold. I spent so much money on doctors and practitioners. I was often told I was in the top 1% of their most sensitive patients. After finally settling into an apartment, I tried to learn and implement the DNRS program on my own, but truthfully, I don't think I really believed in it. My husband would encourage me to do my rounds, but I was always very resistant, and I would try to explain to him that my symptoms were far too severe for me to even stand up or to actually practice. I was bedridden a lot with severe headaches that always took me a day or two to recover from. I had a ton of brain fog. Mornings were very hard. Sometimes I couldn't function at all from the neurological symptoms. I had a lot of issues with my neck still that got worse. I couldn't even lift a spice bottle off of the rack in the pantry without having mild to severe symptoms on any given day. So things were getting really mysterious. I tried a lot of holistic and alternative treatments and diets over the past 10 years. And it was all time consuming, all very expensive. And it did calm things some. And it also did help my neck, especially at first. But then it seemed like I was starting to go in the opposite direction after a while. And it was just a constant roller coaster. And I was also tired of being told how sensitive I was. I was hearing that all the time. Then one day, just about a year and a half ago, I was at the park with my family on a really windy day. I'd had acupuncture the day before. I hadn't eaten anything inflammatory. I had everything all tightly under control so I could enjoy the day and, quote, feel good. And we got home that night and I had pretty severe or what felt like neurological symptoms. So the next day was Mother's Day. I remember waking up and thinking, am I allergic to the wind now? Like, this is crazy. And so that's when it finally clicked after everything else under the sun I had done that it was in my brain. And so this was 3 years after I initially tried to do the DNRS program on my own. I got on their YouTube channel and I learned in one of Annie Hopper's coffee talks that having a resistance to doing your rounds is normal because when structural changes are happening in the brain, even if they're positive, the brain can view it as a threat. So I thought, aha, I knew there was a reason I was so resistant. So that helped to kind of learn that that was normal and to just do it anyway. And then I saw Brea's testimonial on the side of the screen, and I thought that was a God thing, and I clicked on it. And I could really relate to her story. I had similar diagnoses with the mast cell, the chronic inflammatory response. And also at this point, after losing both of my parents during the course of the last 10 years, I had this huge hole inside of me filled with grief. And I was dealing with that too. And I just loved how happy Brea was. And I loved the messages she shared about her own journey and faith. And so I just started watching her videos, probably one a day or more if I had time while I was cooking or whatever. And it really helped boost my mood. So then, and also listening to all her stories on her YouTube channel, I went right back to the beginning. I was like, I'm going to watch all 3 years. And but hearing the stories like about her ankle swelling up out of the blue from old injuries while she was brain retraining has been helpful to me because whenever an unexplainable symptom would appear or reappear in me, I would always think of her ankle story. So that was helpful for me to kind of stop that fear loop, to realize this is normal. Blips are going to go up and down. So I took her class, The Gateway to Healing, last September. So it's been almost a year. And the next thing I know, we started going to church almost every Sunday. Whereas before, any given thing like the wind, for example, would keep me home and not able to go. And I also had some couple coaching sessions with Brea to navigate some challenges I had. One of them was my son's confirmation class. So I had made the mental shift, that I'm not going to fear this anymore. But that was a challenge for me. And if I had been left on my own to navigate that, I probably would have retreated back to avoidance. So I can't encourage you enough to just take that step and get, a private session if you need it, because it'll kind of help you over those insurmountable moments. And then also you'll see a big leap forward usually because that was one of my most memorable improvements after that private with her and then being able to overcome that situation. And so I can happily say now that most of the time, almost all the time, I am thriving and I am able to coach and support my family through any blips that they may get. And I love that my fear is like almost non-existent. I mean, it's really gone most of the time. I have a new little challenge that popped up, and I'm actually going to meet with Brea tomorrow. I haven't even talked to her in many months, but I'm going to talk to her about that. But for example, some of the things I'm overcome, like my husband and I each suffered a fluke head injury this year. Mine was from sports, and his was from a slippery part of a creek. And neither of us have any long-term blips from it, which is an absolute miracle that I have zero issues from that, especially considering all of my past chronic, neurological challenges. I have a joy from the inside that I've never had before. My faith is strong. Our lives are full. I homeschool my kids, and before my health would either make us late, absent, or unhappy. But this year, we've been able to participate in so many events, groups, classes, and camps. And our pastor even said the other day that we really poured ourselves into church this year. And I also wanted to add to that used to be a challenge for me, as I mentioned, but very soon in my journey, going to church, because I had the trust in the Lord that I could overcome whatever I woke up with that day, the church became my sanctuary. So I would sit there and I would be so happy to be there and worshiping the Lord, and I would feel this peace throughout my body. So it was the sanctuary that became my sanctuary, which was really a cool transformation from what I experienced the previous 10 years. Um, so with that said, I wanted to acknowledge that not all my blips are gone, but overall, everything is reduced. Nothing has been debilitating anymore. I'm more resilient. Life still brings its challenges with which I've experienced, but they don't knock me off my feet or consume me the way they would have in the past. It's like they're not dominating my brain anymore, so I can experience the joy that our Lord wants us to have. Um, and I also wanted to add, this is important, that I am not a textbook example of how to do rounds. I never felt like I was doing my memories for long enough or my visualizations well enough. And even many times, like during busy periods or days, or if I was driving a lot, I would listen to Brea's rounds. And I would know when I needed to interrupt my own loops and redirect my mind And listening to hers would also help me see where I could be grateful to the Lord in my own life. So, um, and I still have some healings to do, but I enjoy leading around for myself and also for my children if they're experiencing a challenge with something. And I'll try to shorten this up a little. The other couple things I was going to say is we did start traveling 2 summers ago. And the first year we did it, but there was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of uncomfortable blips, both before, during, and after the trip. And then last year was better. Um, but I still had some pretty good road bumps to overcome at the beginning before I could even try to enjoy anything on the trip. And this year we took a trip and there was none of that. I never suffered any blips. Even when my husband had his head injury, I was calm and capable for that. Um, and I did do my rounds though to kind of keep me on track, keep me on the right path. And the other thing I wanted to add is that on this trip, we stayed in an old farmhouse that actually had water in the stone basement as part of the old-fashioned cooling system. And our friends told me they actually wipe mold out of the home when they go there every summer. And I actually knew that before I went, and I was totally fine. We had the best time. And then the next house we stayed in was built in 1890. And we toured all the like surrounding buildings, and one of them was an old garage that was over 100 years old, and it looked like a haunted house. There were plumes of dust and cobwebs everywhere. And I couldn't help but walk through there thinking about the thousands of dollars that we spent on small particle cleanings. Like as I'm walking through this, building, it was really amazing. And then last week we were cleaning out our closet, getting ready for school, and I saw all these travel air purifiers, and I went, oh, I completely didn't even think to take any of those with me on my trip this year. I forgot we even had them. So little things like that. And then the icing on the cake is I led a group of 15 children this summer. I really felt called to do it, to do a summer study for the National Bible Bee. And we had our big event a week ago Saturday, and it was so amazing. And the parents and the kids were so grateful for everything. And I told them all about the brain rewiring. I said that I never could have done this last year. And it was just really a blessing. And I will say for years, we asked the Lord, help, will you help us be a blessing to others? And I finally got to see that come to pass. It was really awesome. So,
Wow. Ah,
yeah.
I love it, Margo. That's a powerful testimony. Thank you, my dear. So
Yeah.
good. So, so good.